which is the tailbone of the spine, with much more jagged words like Garjvla, or Garzla, which Durza used at the beginning of Eragon. And part of that comes from the Old Norse influence that informed a lot of the ancient language. Because a lot of Norse words tend to be pretty rough to our ears. In fact, all the words in English which have the sk sound, like sky or skirt,
yeah.
So SK, all of those come from Norse.
Wow.
Which actually tells you how much of an influence we have when our word for sky comes from Norse. So anyway, I tend to look at all that stuff when I'm working on the languages, especially like the ancient language, saying, well, do I want to use sort of a Nordic word here? Do I want to just invent a word with a Nordic feel? Or do I want to go slightly more in a more flowing feeling? It's always a mixture. In fact, every time I hit one of these sections, they slow me down immensely because I have to think about all this different stuff.
And you think about it chronologically as you encounter it,
mm-hmm.
rather than going back to it later.
A few times in this book I went back and put stuff in because during the writing process I was moving so quickly. I said, okay, I'll just deal with the languages later in a few places, especially since sometimes it's not worth putting something in when you know there's a chance the scene might be cut, for example.
Right. So much happened in Brisingr, and there is still so much left to happen in the very last book of the cycle. Have you thought about a name for book 4 yet?
Oh, I have. I think I have a name chosen, actually. Readers who are interested in this might be able to guess the name themselves if they think about it very, very hard. The theme of the series, of course, is inheritance. Eragon is the name of the first book, which that's not really anything he inherits, but you could say that he's inheriting the mantle of the very first Eragon. Actually, what he's inheriting in that book is Saphira and Zarok. Eldest, of course, speaks about, who receives the inheritance. It's Murtagh in that case, because he's the eldest member of their family, or so they think. And Brisingr, of course, he inherits a rider's sword. Finally inherits or gets a rider's sword, a true rider's sword for himself.
Part of that legacy.
That's right. So the question is, what does he get, if you will, in the 4th book? And I have the answer to that, but I'm not going to tell you.
Well, that's an interesting question to leave us with. Thank you so much, Christopher,
thank you.
having this conversation about Brisingr and about the inheritance cycle.
It was fun.
This was fun.